Hi, my name's Scott the Miniature Maniac, and today we're trying to find an answer to the question, can I paint a Space Marine in under 30 minutes? You have to wait to the end of the video to figure out the answer to the question. Or you could just skip ahead and figure out, but don't do that because we're friends. What up, Mini family? I was browsing Instagram and I came across a post from Arnaud Lazaro of a Space Marine squad that he claimed took 30 minutes to paint. The post reads, "My 30-minute Space Marine army is taking shape." Now, these miniatures look fantastic, and it got me wondering how fast I could paint a Space Marine if I had the need for speed. So I picked up an easy-to-build set of reviers and got to work. First, I sat down and figured out what all my steps would be and what specific colors I was going to use. I even went so far as to include how long I thought each step would take to better ensure that I was staying at or under 30 minutes. Let's break down how I painted my first trial and how I tried to save time. For this Marine, I don't have a base coat in a traditional sense. My coat of primer is gray, and then my first coat of paint is zenithally applied white ink with an airbrush. After that, I applied some shading with a contrast paint to get some colder definition in our shadows. By the way, if you're curious about what colors I'm using specifically, normally I don't share them, but in this video they'll be written out in the description below. The reason why I applied a contrast paint through the airbrush is that it works similar to an ink, but my next step is going to be applying a diluted version of this same contrast paint as a wash to bring more definition to all those panels. If there's one thing primaris Space Marines have, it's properly sized legs and also panels for days. After that, it was time to base coat all the black details. This was the largest time sink because the undercoat is a very bright color, in this case near white. You need at least 2 coats of black paint for most details on the model, and there are a lot of them. I also painted the silver bits black, and you'll see why later. After the black, we'll slap some red accents onto the model. I don't plan to add any highlights to this red, however, with the face, I will add some recessed shading around the eye sockets and the mouth. This is something I discovered was necessary for this specific model just to make it look finished. If you're trying to speed paint a different model, keep something like this in mind. Just because I recessed shaded the red on the face does not mean I have to do the same to all red parts on the model. Now I move on to the next important step, some basic weathering. I think weathering is important because it adds more visual interest to the miniature with very little time invested. I just sponged on some dark brown color all over the model. Next up, it was time for some quick and dirty edge highlights of both the white armor and also the black details. We're talking one step, only doing some edges. This is actually a good opportunity to clean up some of the black mistakes you likely made during the base coat step. Apply the white edge highlight to the black spots that snuck onto your white power armor. Oftentimes, I will feel the need to fix paint mistakes I make immediately, but if it can wait until later when I already have a certain paint loaded into my brush, I can save time. You know who's great at saving time? Every single one of my patrons. In this week's video, we're shouting out Victoria Paget, Winds of Change, Derek Shell, Big Vape, Robin Lebrecht, Tony Colioni, Odie Humanity, John Steffen, Duran Barnett, John Haxby, Josh Docking, Nick Gray, Alexander Graham, Benjamin Lowry, Matthew Cook, Megan, The Wet Noodler, Thomas Powers, Daniel Sudworth, Callum Kennedy, and Eric Eklund. Thank you guys for being my new patrons this month, and also thank you to all my old patrons that have been around for a long time. You guys are the reason that I am able to do this thing full time. You are my largest form of regular income, and I thank you for that so much. If you're interested in supporting the channel and also want to see what kind of offerings I have on my Patreon as rewards, you can find it linked in the description below. After the edge highlighting was done, it was time to do the metallics, and I'm only doing silver. I apply the paint, making sure to preserve the deepest recesses of the black. This way, I only need 1 coat of paint and I'm already done. The remaining black acts as my recessed shade, giving definition to my silver. I'm also trying to use paints that get full coverage in 1 coat of paint, in this case Storm Hose Silver. This saves me time and having to reapply multiple coats of paint. Lastly, I paint some of the small details like the purity seal, various buttons, and the eyes very quickly and I'm done. In 34 minutes and 47 seconds, this marine was complete. Not bad for the first trial, but there are some problems. Number 1, this model looks like a space wolf, not a white scar, which is what I was going for. And number 2, the edge highlights and black details took way too long. With those shortcomings in mind, let's proceed to trial number 2 with some modifications to our paint plan. The first modification we'll make is diluting the white ink less so that it applies more opaquely and thus more quickly. We're talking a strict 1:1 ink to Vallejo airbrush thinner ratio. Next, instead of using a bluish shadow, I used a green and blue shadow. My thought here was that it would contrast nicely with the red accents because green is on the opposite side of the color wheel from red and would get away from the traditional Space Wolf colors. For trial number 2, I didn't apply a wash to the marine. I don't think it needs it, and skipping it can shave valuable minutes off of our paint job, but we'll see later if it was a good idea. After that, it was on to dealing with the black details. I figured if I used a different color other than black, one that would cover over white more easily and quickly, like a brown, I would save time because I wouldn't need to apply multiple coats of paint. Instead of edge highlighting the brown details like I did the black, I applied a wash, except I used Cygor Brown, another Citadel contrast paint, and this one in particular is intensely dark, so that was pretty much a wasted step, unfortunately. It obscured all the brown detail. Lastly, I didn't edge highlight as many details of the power armor this time around. I specifically skipped the boots. How long do you think trial number 2 took me? A disappointing amount of time. My idea to reduce time on the black details didn't work at all, and somehow I took longer on the edge highlighting stuff even though I did less. Comparing trial number 2 and number 1, I think I'm okay with skipping the wash step, and I think I'm on track with getting the right amount of white. There are certain parts that could use some more definition in the recesses, but overall, it's not crucial. Alright, trial number 2 was a failure. On to trial number 3, let's see if I can figure some things out. I think a problem with number 2 was the shading. I like the green, but it wasn't dark enough to be a shade. I changed the color to be a little bit more blue and also darker. I unfortunately switched back to using all black for the various details, as that seemed to be faster in my limited testing. The last modification to trial number 2 was to do even less edge highlighting here. I'm skipping the power pack now, and also I went a little bit heavier on the weathering stage. In the end, trial number 3 took me 34 minutes and 43 seconds. A negligible improvement on our fastest time, and also not under 30 minutes. Dang it. I set out to accomplish something, paint a space marine in under 30 minutes, and I wasn't able to accomplish it. But along the way, I gained insight into so many different things. I learned that possibly my first color choice may not be my best one, and that maybe I should experiment before investing in a scheme. I learned that for me, maybe a wash doesn't bring as much value as I thought it would when time is of the essence. Maybe I should apply a wash selectively to certain parts of the miniature, but not all over. This fine-tuning procedure is great to go through if you're trying to find a paint scheme for an army. This box only cost me $15, a very cheap investment for a little bit of assurance that you're painting your army how you'd like. I had a lot of fun seeing what corners I could cut to produce a marine at a minimum quality that I would accept close to 30 minutes. If you guys like speed painting, you can find more videos like that linked in the top right hand corner of the screen. If you like the channel and you want to try to support it, there's an article in the description that lists out a bunch of ways that you can support me, both free and not free. Namely, a Patreon campaign with a bunch of fun rewards like a Discord server where you and I can hang out any day of the week and chat about your miniature painting projects, and also your favorite flavor of Jolly Rancher, but also other ways like merchandise and shopping on Amazon with my affiliate link. Subscribe or die! And most importantly, don't forget to paint more miniatures!